Good afternoon to all of you out there in the 850. This is Trey Hutt. I'm back with Eating the Elephant, and we are at part 14 of our series on insurance information and hurricane recovery tips following Hurricane Michael. We'll try to keep it a little bit brief. I know I went very, very long on Wednesday and was a bit ranty, so my apologies for that. But there have been some pretty important things going on. And I'm still a little bit troubled by some of what I'm seeing in town. And every once in a while, I think I lose the handle on it just a little bit, so my apologies. By my count, we're on day 67, and if that's incorrect, I'm sure somebody on Facebook will pop right up and let me know. But I wanted to start with something that I found particularly serious today. And I'd like to speak to some folks probably in Jacksonville. I think this is probably a big corporate decision. And something in our family on Sundays, we have my father over and we have a family dinner. That's kind of our Sunday tradition. And of course, any meal at the Hutt House tends to involve a trip to Publix. And when I got to Publix today in Lynn Haven, I found that they had rearranged everything. That they had just rearranged the entire store. I don't know, again, whose decision this was, but I think we should immediately, I don't want to overreact, but whoever was responsible for rearranging my grocery store, I think they should be drawn and quartered immediately. So, of course, I don't mean that, but what I do mean to say is that there are all these little things that get to us on a day-to-day basis, and even sometimes the smallest things can sort of upset the apple cart. So when something happens to you, again, like we've discussed before, if someone cuts you off in traffic, or you wait in an exceptionally long line for something, or you have a frustrating phone call with an adjuster, don't let it get to you. You have to remember that self-care and patience are the order of the day, and you can't let the little things get you down. What I would say as sort of a counter to that is do try to let the good things absorb. And for instance, today, after the gray and rainy weather we've had during this week, today was just gorgeous. It was nice and cool outside, clear sky, barely a cloud up until very, very late in the afternoon. And so it was nice to get out and enjoy that, and I hope you were able to do so. Let's get into a couple of things. And I've posted some of these things on Facebook, but I think some people tend to prefer the video format. We've had some questions, probably more from clients than from our help desk folks, and that is, what's going to happen to my rates? My rates are going to double or triple. A lot of folks have harkened back to Hurricane Andrew back to 1992, and rates did go up fairly significantly after that storm. What I would say is rates are not going to go up next year. We will at most have a very modest rate increase, something on the order of maybe 5-6%. And I think even that's unlikely. And the reason is very simple, is that while I realize this has been devastating to the Panhandle and it has been a monster for us, it is an elephant we're eating one bite at a time. But for the entire insurance industry, you have to remember that's a global industry. And they count dollars not even in millions and billions anymore, but in trillions. And this storm is not going to be enough to move the needle. The Department of Insurance says that they think this is about a $4.5 billion storm. In other words, $4.5 billion worth of insured value that will be paid out by insurance companies. The super smart bean counters, mostly out of London, tend to think it's more in the $10 or $10.5 billion storm. Now, to give you some perspective on Hurricane Andrew, if you took Hurricane Andrew from 1992 and brought it to today's dollars, you'd be looking at about a $45 billion storm, so much, much more significant. And I stole this line from John Thompson, who is a competitor and friend of mine. He said, the wildfires in California will have more effect on Florida rates next year than this hurricane. As strange as that is to hear, it's absolutely true. In sort of a perverse thing that some folks will find very surprising, your rates actually may go down next year. Assuming your insurance company doesn't change your rate, which is probably a safe assumption for more than probably half of us, you will have a new roof, very likely, and you may have some additional features, some additional wind mitigation features. Your roof will certainly be up to code, so particularly if you had an older roof structure, you will see some significant discounts once that roof is put back on and up to current code, and you may actually see your premiums go down. So there's one little bitty sort of silver lining in our dark cloud. If you have any questions about rates, you can shoot me a private message, you can post something on Facebook, and we'll try to jump back to you. I'm sure there will be exceptions to this rule, but I'm talking about for the vast majority of us, things probably won't change very much at all. We've also had some questions about what to do with your current insurance if your home is damaged to a large degree, or even if it's going to be bulldozed. My advice to most of you, and I think everyone's situation is different, but I'm going to try to do the best I can here. Generally speaking, now is not a good time to cancel your insurance coverage. And some people have immediately responded to that with, well, what's the point in insuring something that's going to be a pile of rubble here in a matter of a couple of days or a couple of weeks? There are things other than the insurance coverage on your structure itself that are going to be very valuable to you. You may have contents in storage somewhere. You certainly have liabilities that you still need coverage for, not just for the site. I mean, think about it. You have a construction site or a debris site, and we've already seen our first issue in our office where we had a child get injured. Fortunately, not terribly seriously, but was somewhere the kid shouldn't have been and was injured. And the homeowner there, even though the kid was somewhere he wasn't supposed to be, the homeowner is still going to be held legally responsible for that. So, again, you don't want to get rid of your liability coverage. If you are bringing in bulldozers and you want to cancel your insurance, you do still need to think about two things. Number one, and the more important of the two, is the liability insurance that you need to have for yourself. And the other issue is what you're going to do to insure your contents. And that can be a little bit of a difficult challenge sometimes because we're in such an unusual situation. The other thing I would tell you is you don't have to make a decision quickly. If we get another 2 or 3 weeks down the road and you find a little bit better long-term solution to your situation, you can always go back and ask your insurance company to cancel your insurance to the day after the storm. Most of the insurance companies that we deal with are honoring those requests, and some that are being maybe a little more sticky about rules will go back at least 30 days at a minimum, but for the most part, what we've seen is they're honoring the request to go back all the way to just after the storm. We've also had some questions along those lines about selling property and whether that can be done before you get insurance checks. Absolutely. You would want to talk to probably a real estate attorney, closing agents. Your realtor certainly needs to be involved in these decisions. But you had to have what's known as insurable interest in your property when the loss happened. In other words, on the 10th of October. You could have sold your house the day after that, and you're still entitled to the proceeds that come along with repairing that home, unless you've assigned them to the new owner. I would suggest that probably assigning your proceeds to another party is probably not a good idea, and there's probably a lot better ways to handle your situation other than assigning the benefits under your insurance policy to someone. We've talked about assignment of benefits with regard to contractors and public attorneys, but my advice not to sign over an assignment of benefits to a new owner holds as well. So again, get some really good advice from someone that's very qualified. You're certainly welcome to give us a call at our office or shoot something over to our help desk if you have questions. But again, I think a good real estate attorney is probably a good investment as well there. One other thing, and this is kind of a repeat, we've talked before about depreciation, and I think some people must have brushed by some of our advice or maybe have missed some of our video segments. Depreciation is money that you're entitled to get. There are two kinds, recoverable and non-recoverable depreciation. The larger number usually is the recoverable depreciation, and that's money that you're entitled to get back from your insurance company once the work is completed. In other words, if your roof is going to cost $30,000 to put on and your insurance scope of work, your estimate you got early on, says $22,000 and then there's $8,000 in recoverable depreciation, you're entitled to get that money back, but only after the work is done. They will pay you on completion. It's a little bit like a holdback in a construction project. If you've got any other questions, depreciation tends to be a much bigger issue when we're talking about contents. And you're welcome to private message me. You're welcome to post something on Facebook or call our office and we'll explain those issues to you as well. My best advice for those issues is to call your agent and ask them to explain them to you because that is their job. That is what you pay them to do. And one other item about coverage before we close down on a couple of other notes is additional living expenses. I need to remind everybody additional living expenses is just that. Additional expenses, and that's not just rent. We've got some people that have been in touch that think all that is for is to rent a place to live. But think about all of the additional expenses that you're going to have. There are lots and lots of folks that are over in South Walton County along 30A, west end of the beach, having to drive an awful lot farther every day, burn a lot more gas, eat it up on their car. You're having to eat meals out more often. Your insurance company in a situation like that is not going to pay for all of your gas bills, but what you are entitled to do is collect for the additional mileage that you're having to put on your vehicle. it's the way we calculated, the way I did it with my homeowner's policy is I talked it over to my adjuster and I said, this is how far I drive to work every day. And when we were having to live out of our house over in South Walton County for a period of time, we looked at the mileage there versus the mileage here every day, and the fact that we were also working 7 days a week instead of just 5. And what they ended up doing instead of looking at gas receipts was they paid me the, I think it was the IRS allowed mileage rate that you would put on your taxes, 54 cents a mile, something like that. And they compensated me for that, which I was certainly entitled to, just like you are if you're having to incur those additional expenses. So don't forget, additional living expense is not just for rent. It is for any additional expense over and above. Having said that, we've seen some pretty wacky requests for things that should be paid for. I think I'll skip those. I may post a list of those a little bit later, but I have posted some similar things about what not to put on your contents list, because it will get extra scrutiny and it will slow things down. Things that are genuinely as a result of the hurricane are what you need to be focused on when you're filing your insurance claim. Finally, before we go, I'd like to say something. I've tried to give out all the help I can on social media. We've tried to do this series of Facebook Live. We've also, as most of you know, we have a free public help desk where we're helping the general public, people that are not our clients, for no fee, we're not asking for any kind of compensation. We're not even asking people if we can write their insurance later. But I am going to ask for something now. And it's because I'm an insurance guy. I'm not a Facebook guy. Those of you out there in hurricane land that are watching this are probably very, very adept at Facebook. And what we're facing now is a lot of the things that we talk about are getting in people's pockets. If I talk about assignment of benefits and the misuse of that, that's going to affect someone's pocketbook. There could be a kind of a seedy contractor out there that kind of cuts into their living. And frankly, I'm very comfortable with that. I've similarly said some things that were concerning about public adjusters and some of the way they've been involved in the process here. And the difficulty that I'm beginning to have now is Facebook, other social media, search engines, those people whose livelihood sort of depends on maybe doing things that I disagree with, have been savage. They really have. We're getting a little bit picked on, and I'm a big boy and I can handle that. But it would really help, and I'm going to ask you to do a favor, that if this has been helpful, if we have been able to provide you some assistance of any kind, I'd like for you to do two things. I'd like for you to share the word. I would like for you to tell people to come and seek our help, and to take a look at this video series or our posts on Facebook. And I'd also like for your help in playing defense. If you could say something kind about us, again, only if we've been helpful. If you have watched these videos and found them maybe mildly interesting, I'm not asking for your help. But if they've been genuinely helpful to you, or to friends of yours, maybe someone that you shared them with, then I would ask for you to offer just a kind word of some kind, either on Google, Yelp, Facebook, something, just to help us play a little bit of defense against those that frankly I think we're black hats in this whole situation. And finally, I want to give you the resources that I'm going to try to always close with from now on. We're again at day 67, and if you don't have a significant amount of money in your hands by now on your claim, it's well past time that you should have been able to settle at least part of your claim. And I think if you're not having success, then you need to involve the Department of Financial Services, Jimmy Petronis's office. You need to call 800-22-STORM. And we're hearing that sometimes that 800 number doesn't work. So the other direct number, which we've heard has been very consistently working, is 850-413-3089. Again, that is 413-3089. And you can call the Department of Financial Services. They have mediators. They have very skilled technical people that have been very energetic and very competent following this storm. And if you bring them a problem, they will take that to the insurance company, and that insurance company only has 20 days to respond to that inquiry. And they better come up with something pretty good, because I've seen some very, very effective action by some of the employees of the Department of Financial Services. And finally, I'll leave you with our number of our help desk. We had asked you to text. You can also call now, because our traffic has begun to taper off. You can call there and leave a message, and we can set an appointment for you. Or you can shoot us a text message at 850-273-9356. Hope everybody has a good week, and we'll see you on Wednesday.